Okay, well, welcome to Black Swan Outdoors. Today we're going to be talking about sheltering in place. This is probably one of the more important aspects of emergency preparedness. It's not as sexy and as cool as bugging out, grabbing your bug out bag and heading for the hills. This is a little bit more realistic in the sense of like how most people are going to respond. They're going to go to their home, their apartment, the place where they live, and they're going to be safer there. So if you're not familiar with Black Swan Outdoors, we're a blog. We do a lot of outdoor skills, prepping skills, emergency preparedness skills, safety culture type stuff. Every Tuesday we do our kind of flagship post is a Tradecraft Tuesday, so we do spy skills, spycraft, and try to connect these things that are happening out in the world to individuals and making people hopefully a little bit safer. So definitely check us out. We have tons and tons of articles and interesting stuff. And we have a special kind of section on emergency preparedness for you, which is where this presentation will be found. So what we're going to do is, what I thought we'd do is we'd actually kind of take a look at some of my preparations to kind of give people maybe some thoughts on how to prepare. So some people might be absolutely brand new to this, and this might be very basic stuff for a lot of people. Some people might be super awesome, lifelong preppers, and that's awesome. So I'm kind of want to be able to kind of present to everybody, and so I thought maybe I would go through the stuff that I had. This is very similar in terms of I did something with kind of emergency response kits, and so this is about basically what I've done in my home to help. And again, it's not to brag at all, or it's not to say that my house is totally complete or I'm totally self-sufficient at all. But this is just to say, these are the things that I've done over the course of my 10-ish years in emergency preparedness. So this is stuff that I've kind of gotten into, over the course of time. So where do I live? I live out in the country. I live in a very rural area. I'm about 35, 40 miles, I think, from any kind of bigger city, many miles from smaller cities, smaller towns. We got about 15 acres of property where I have garden space and access for hunting and things of that nature. So my location is very rural and very different from maybe most people who live in the cities. I think we're going to be shortly, I think we're over 50% of our population of the world now lives in cities, and very soon it'll be 70%. So, certainly living in the country is an outlier is basically what I'm trying to say. So on the blog, we've talked about some household plans, we have examples of some mobilization plans that you have, and then some vehicle plans as well. So we have kind of a little booklet that helps with some of the household focused emergency preparedness type stuff. So check out that video presentation. And then we have some kind of downloaded information that you can get, standard operating procedures, if you want to call them that, on how to mobilize your family or group, and then how to kind of organize your vehicle in the way that you're going to be responding in, say, an evacuation. So we have these kind of plans that are available. This is the emergency plan that you can download. I think every house needs to have some kind of home-based kit, 72-hour kit. We should have some kind of plans on evacuation or bugging out, if you want to call it that. And I think that you certainly want to have an idea of what you could evacuate and how you're going to evacuate, what you're going to take with you. I had gone into like what I call a service pack. It's not really designed for kind of the classical bugging out. It's more of kind of, hey, I'm going to grab this pack because there's a disaster going on in the town near me, so I can go and help them out, whatever. So these are things that I could be self-sufficient with in that function. So definitely we have that video on that, so check that out. So this is kind of the kit that I have, some basic things: first aid kit, shell, towel, change of clothing, GPS, ways to treat water, and then I have a small comms kit as well that gives me a radio communications, two-way radio communications, extended antennas, extended battery use, that kind of stuff. So gives me a little bit of ability, some flexibility if I'm away from home to, you know, service other towns or get back home. I probably would start, if I was going to start in any one place, would be with food. I think food is, you know, when you're looking at wilderness survival, food is kind of a last priority. When we're looking at urban survival or emergency preparedness, I think food is up there with probably one of the first things you want to think about. Not only is it help kind of as a morale, and that you're going to need food, it's going to give you the ability to help others. So you're going to have the energy to help other people, and it's also going to give you the ability to help others by them not relying, you know, on let's say FEMA or, you know, food banks and things like that. That it kind of extends the community's ability to help other people if you're kind of self-contained. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at it from 3 different areas. We're going to look at emergency food, so stuff that we can dip in really quick, stuff that maybe doesn't need to be cooked or not cooked much, that you can eat real quick on the go. You know, you're trying to deal with the cleaning off your yard, you got a big hole in your roof. The last thing you want to do is kind of put together some big freaking meal. So you want to have some emergency food that you can kind of transport, move, and kind of dip into for that kind of high intensity period. And then you're going to want to have at least 2, maybe 3 weeks of food that we're going to call cupboard food. This is your regular food. This is stuff you get in the grocery store that's non-perishable, or maybe some of it could be perishable. Doesn't really matter that much, but most of it's going to be non-perishable stuff that you regularly have, that you can, you know, have and prepare. And if you have about 2 weeks worth of food, that's going to get you through most emergencies. You really aren't going to need anything beyond that, to be completely honest. There is, for those that want bulk food, so if you have limited access to a grocery store, there's not a lot of grocery stores in your area, you're afraid of maybe losing your job, this might be a way to kind of extend unemployment by not having to purchase food. If you bought, like, say, 6 months or a year's worth of food that you can dip into, you know, so there's a lot of reasons to have long-term food. Another way, or another thing that you can do with long-term food, is hand it out to other people, give food away, be able to feed people, like, say, set up a park and prepare food and have a community meal for people that maybe have just lost their home and that kind of thing. So it does make sense to have, I think, bulk food, or have food that you can buy in bulk that you could use and serve large groups of people, and have that put back. And then certainly in a really, really bad emergency situation, you know, you have enough food to last you through a year or 6 months, or an extended period of time. You know, I think that, you know, probably we could see another pandemic, with another type of disease, with climate change and everything the way it is. That's certainly possible. And so our quarantine rules could be even stricter for the next pandemic. So this is kind of just a picture of some long-term food. We do a lot of different types of storage for food, canning, cooking. This is some jars that we have from some canned goods and some dried stuff, dried mushrooms, dried potatoes. We do we have electric dryer and a solar dryer. And this is kind of our basic kind of bulk food storage, if you will, kind of emergency shelf area. And so we have supplies in some buckets and we have food in others. Mainly the buckets and the system that we have is what's called a bean. We've taken one recipe and done a bulk meal for that one recipe. So it's bean soup. It's like a lentil, split peas soup. And so that would be the meal that we would have once or twice a day, for an extended period of time, or would be the meal that we would cook for people. So it takes multiple pails of rice, beans, peas, and different things in there. I think there's about 8 buckets altogether of all the stuff, and I have a printout online on the blog as well, on the recipe, and then also, you know, the list of what you would need to purchase and how to prepare this bean soup for putting back. Next priority is going to be water. The reason why water is a second priority is because with modern day plumbing systems and such, water availability isn't really as much of a concern. You know, the average grocery store has about, for a community, you know, about 3 days worth of food for community, and then we have supply chain issues and things that make things a little bit more precarious. Whereas water is, you know, for most municipalities are getting water, groundwater, and so the only thing that limits your ability to get water is electricity sometimes. And this is particularly for those in a country that are relying on their own well. But even if we don't have water, there's always water around, whether it be bottled water, whether it be, you know, even surface water of some kind, like streams, lakes, and ponds. You can do water catchment and things like that. So we can make water a more accessible. The other thing that's nice about water is it's very inexpensive. So it's easy to store in bulk as well. So we want to think about water. We want to think about the immediate water usage and treatability of that water. And we also want to think of kind of midterm storage of water and then long-term bulk water. So for immediate use, you know, our household has a Berkey style water filter. This gets a lot of contaminants out of the water, makes the water a little more palatable. We could go to the stream, we could dip, you know, a bucket in the stream, get stream water, put it through a system, and it'll treat your water by gravity and have, you know, have some basic drinking water available. The other alternative is just having, you know, large, you know, the large 6 gallons of water, that, you know, water cooler water that's big enough that you can actually carry it and move it if you need to. And then we have kind of a push top pump that sits on one of these bottles that can pump the water out, and you can decant it into like another water bottle or a pitcher or something. So you can always have access to water. Either it's water that's being treated or water that's stored. You know, as an alternative to kind of the larger jugs would be, you know, 1 gallon jugs. Just get a ton of the 1 gallon jugs instead of a 5 gallon jug. It just means you know, you have to put those in a box or something to move them all together at the same time. So at any rate, you know, the other thing would be just bottled, you know, cases of bottled water. No problem with that either. Just throw a bunch of cases of bottled water in your storage and don't think about it. And then you can hand out water bottles to people, and that's certainly very possible. Makes it very accessible. When it comes to like long-term storage, you know, having a large, like 55 gallon drum of water, if that's possible in your basement, you can do it. I have 55 gallons of water, and then there's really not much you can do with a 55 gallon drum. Once it's there, it's kind of sitting there. But you know, I can decant that with a hand pump, you know, into another container if I need access to that water. In addition to that 55 gallons, I have 3 30-some gallon, I think 33 gallon containers as well. So this water is really not supposed to be potable water. It is potable. The idea is that I have enough water that we can use for flushing toilets, cleaning dishes, doing laundry, things of that nature as well. So, you know, ideally you want to have 1 gallon of water per person per day put back for drinking, and then you want some additional water for the other tasks. You know, we have had situations where our well went out and it took a day and a half for a person to come to fix it. We've had situations and, you know, deep freeze situations that froze our pipes. In the winter, we've had emergency or power outages for a chunk of time. So having some of that water put back certainly has been helpful. Well, we're going to go into extremes of 55 gallons. Probably for most people, they don't need it, but again, we're rural, but we do have a creek and springs on our property. The next priority that I would consider is some kind of medical kit, first aid kit. Certainly going to be something very, very helpful. Think about like a jump bag that like a paramedic might have. It doesn't have to be that grade or that quality, but something that's big enough that's transportable, or that's small enough that it's transportable, but big enough that it's going to have everything that you need. And then also what we want to talk about is how we're going to transport people that might be sick or injured, and then some of that long-term care. So I picked up this kind of three-way folding Army surplus. I think it's M17 pack. There's better packs out there. I know there's better packs out there. This was $20, but it folds out. It gives me the ability to kind of label each pouch and be able to find the things that I need. You could use a tackle box. You could use a more expensive bag. You could use a proper duffel bag, jump bag that you can get on Amazon. I would recommend, though, if you don't have any first aid kits, get the stuff in a kit, not individual items, because oftentimes you can get the kit itself a lot cheaper than having to buy individual items. Be very careful about it. Plan it out yourself, but you'll find quite often that sometimes those kits can be cheaper, or you could forego the bag itself and just get the resupply kit, and that's going to be able to get you a lot of stuff fairly inexpensively as well. But again, this is something that you want to add to over the course of time. And also I would suggest not getting things that you're not trained for, like suturing or IV bags and things like that. If it's not something that's in your wheelhouse, it's not really going to be helpful to you. And there's a lot of things that you can improvise as well. So basic stuff for wound care, musculoskeletal issues, some basic medications, bandage material, things like that. If you're curious about what I have packed on there, I do have a downloadable PFD, a downloadable list PDF that's available, the kit. Next thing would be an NBC kit, or nuclear, biological, chemical. You can call it a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear kit. I think that's more updated acronym. But this is basically just stuff to kind of help protect you from any of these kind of chemicals or impurities in the air to even infectious diseases and things of that nature. So a little overkill maybe for a lot of things, but I think that we've seen in the last year, or at least in 2020, a lot of civil unrest. So lots of pepper spray being all around the United States. But there's always the risk of certainly infectious diseases, as we saw with COVID, and with the former president, how he got us to the brink of nuclear war. That happened in our lifetime, and I think that the likelihood of that happening is slim, but it's not impossible. There's also industrial accidents that can happen. A chemical truck could get into a collision. There's all sorts of reasons why you may need something like this. Again, it doesn't have to be as comprehensive as I have here, or it could be better than what I have here. But basically, it's just a Tyvek suits with hoods, the full mask respirators or gas masks, heavy-duty gloves, and then decontamination kit, soap, potassium iodide, and then some duct tape to seal up the cuffs of the legs and arms, and then a little bag to kind of put it all in. So this is one kit for 2 people that can be in your car. We have a presentation specifically on radio communications and general communications. So we're not going to go too in depth in this, but we'll talk a little bit about kind of conventional communications with cell phones, and then monitoring, receiving, and then transmitting. So we have available what we call the Unconventional Force Signals Operations Instructions, or SOI. You can download, and that can get you a pretty good communications plan for those that are very much into radio communications, and ham radio and that kind of stuff. So if you're not familiar with this type of stuff, we have kind of an introduction video on that talks about the pros and cons of the Baofeng UV5R, which is a pretty common radio nowadays. Certainly what's helpful is having some kind of, I would recommend a shortwave radio, especially if you do a lot of international travel, and then having a small handheld radio. Again, this is that kit that I had that has different antenna options and different radio receiving and transmitting options, as well as power options, so battery banks and extended batteries and things of that nature. This is a little bit more comprehensive kit. We talk specifically about this in a couple other videos. This is basically a mobile base kit that you can use to set up radio communications to do 2-meter ham radio communications. And I have a multiple power sources, battery, solar, as well as my vehicle and AC plug-in. I have 2 handheld walkie-talkies. I can create a mobile base, like to use a relay station from, like, say, a car, as well as this kit is designed to be mobile, and it gives me the ability to monitor pretty much all types of traffic. So I can do all ham bands, all like radio, police, fire, pretty much everything that's not encrypted, as well as all the different kind of services you can get off the web as well. So there is it emits its own network. So let's say if you had a group of people and you're looking for a lost dog, you can transmit to people's phones the picture of that lost dog. You could also do texting in an area, or communicating with other people. So you have the ability to do this all. If you don't have the internet, you can kind of create a small kind of local, I guess, a local net, wireless net to communicate on. So again, I have conventional radio stations, the ham radio stations, logging. I can translate CW. There's a lot of capability. There's an inverter in here, so we can run stuff, charge things, charging batteries, charging rechargeable batteries. All that kind of stuff can be done with this kit. This is just a 25-foot mast at the house. I just put it on top of a flagpole here so that it can get better coverage. And then you can also take that on the road with you as well. So when we're talking about sheltering in place and we don't have electricity, or in a situation we don't have electricity, heat, or water, or food, we need to think about alternative sources for power. And so at our place, we have a generator, and this is a dual fuel generator, so it runs on propane and gas. So it's a little bit safer to store propane. So we have about 4 bottles of propane, and then 4 5-gallon, so about 20 gallons of gas that we store. And this generator is big enough to run to keep our refrigerators, freezer going, as well as powering light and that kind of stuff. So we can connect it to the house, or we can run extension cords if we need to. But it's also, the nice thing about it is it's pretty mobile. So if we have electricity and others don't, we can take this generator on the road and provide electricity if we need to, say, cook for people or whatever. So here's some alternative battery sources. So we have a couple different types of batteries, marine batteries, and then as well as kind of some of the gel batteries that are lighter, more quicker to charge up, and then a solar array as well to charge all that. So we can charge this by AC, DC, AC means, bring it in the house if we have electricity, and then we can do a DC through solar if we don't have electricity. or charging these batteries up also with the generator too, or with the car. You know, this is probably not the safest means of alternative light. Certainly LED lighting is super cheap and much safer, and we can run extension cords with LED lights all around the house. Probably something that I would look into, more so than kind of gas based or you know, kerosene based lamps. But if that's what you have, that's what you have. So that's then we have some alternative means of cooking. So we have barbecued grill, camp stoves. This is just a bio multi-fuel bio rocket stove. So you can quickly boil water with this and not have to worry about carrying fuel with you. We have wood heat. So what that means is we need firewood. So luckily we're in an area that's surrounded by firewood, by trees. So we can, we do a lot of wood cutting. So we have enough wood that we generally have that we can burn through the entire season and still have wood left over for the next season. So we can season some wood. And so with that, we have, you know, the ability to cook outdoors, again, like on the open fire or a barbecue pit. We can also cook and keep our entire house warm with the wood stove. So here's just a, you know, cutting down a tree, and then this is one of our, we have 2 wood sheds and then like a stringer for additional wood as well. So over the course of an emergency of some type of things, you're going to need to have the ability to repair and fix things. So we're going to look at some of the toolbox, kind of the workshop, sewing, and vehicle maintenance. This is what this is my basic toolbox. So we have, I'll probably do a video specifically on all the contents on this, but basically it has everything that I need in a basic workshop that I can carry with me in this bucket. And I actually have 2 buckets that I carry tools with. And it serves us very well. Very easy to find things, very easy to organize stuff. Little heavy to carry, to be honest. So I have like a little strap that I use to kind of make carrying this a little bit easier. Then some kind of wood, you know, or workshop for more projects. So this is kind of inside of my workshop. I've got power tools, table saws, or miter saw, sanders, you know, drills, vices, all that kind of stuff that you'd need in a workshop to do some repairs. So this has been very, very handy to have. This has been in a trailer outside of the house because we don't have a garage, but it has its own heat source and own electricity source. And then I think getting comfortable with sewing is a really handy skill. And I think that it's kind of underrated. So if you have the ability to sew, you have the ability to make things, whether it be clothing or gear or whatever you need. I personally have done this to make lockpick set, making a lockpick set organizer, and many other different projects that I've done with a sewing machine. So certainly something that every homestead needs to have. All right, so let's talk some additional kits. I've got a sanitation kit, a sick kit, a kit for emergency kit for an attic that we keep, and then an emergency kit that we can keep in the basement. So not all this might be applicable to everybody, but certainly these might be kind of some foods for thoughts. So this is the basic emergency kit or 72-hour kit. It's a 2-part kit. So I have part 1 is your kind of standard 24-hour, 72-hour kind of blackout scenario. So we've got candles, we got N95 masks, we got food, we've got a hose, an RV quality hose that we can get water out of our hot water heater if we need to. We've got lamp oil, we got plastic sheeting, duct tape, lanterns, matches, weather radio or spare weather radio, that kind of stuff. So you can go on FEMA, print off their list, and they've got a really great list of kind of a home 24-hour kit. The second part of that kit is kind of more extended stuff. So I've got another camp stove, I've got a shovel, I've got a set of games to, if you're for a long period of time, things that you might want to rely on that, to entertain yourself or to do other needs like bearing waste and things like that are going to need to do over that course of that longer period of time. So I have kit 1 is kind of that 72 hours, and then kit 2 is 72 hours plus. And again, this probably not really what everyone needs to do, but certainly that's what I feel like we need to do because we're so far remote. This is kind of my emergency station. So it has the buckets of long-term food. It has buckets of sanitation equipment. We have the dog food and cat food for our pets in the same location. Well, again, so if we need to evacuate, we can take that stuff with us if we need to do that. And then I have a fire extinguisher as well as bucket tools, wrenches, flashlights, mallets, things like that you need for an emergency to get the food or to access, utilities, shut off water, things like that. This is the sanitation kit on the left. So we have the ability to wash clothing, get water, create a makeshift bathroom. And again, if this might be not stuff that you might need at your home, but you can take it to a place where they might need that. So if you're making a makeshift camp, to provide help with people, you might find that you might need a mobile toilet. You might need, there might not be any, we saw it with coronavirus, a run on toilet paper and paper products. Well, if you have flannels that you can use and wash, then great. You don't need to worry about the toilet paper issue. And then this is a really handy device that I really like. I think I got 2 or 3 of these, I think 2 of them. You plug it into your wall outlet, the power goes out, it turns on as kind of a safety night light. You can pull it out of the wall and use it as a flashlight as well. Super handy. I have one by my circuit breaker. So I always have light by the circuit breaker, power goes off, and I have another one that's on my way to the circuit breaker that I could grab in a very central location. This is a sick kit. So this is something to provide aid to somebody who might have maybe a longer term illness, maybe like a flu or something like that. So I've got food, saltines, jug of water, sheets, N95 masks, gloves, all the things that you might need to kind of assist somebody if you wanted to make kind of a makeshift infirmary. So maybe someone in your household is sick, and you can basically take this kit, bring it up into the room, and everything is self-contained. You have everything that you need to kind of create kind of a quarantine area if you need to. In a long-term emergency situation, quarantining people as a precaution and making sure they're not bringing diseases into your community is a pretty good measure. But we're not there yet. That's not something we need to think about, but everyone gets sick, whether it's seasonal flu or whatnot. And having kind of a sick kit or an illness kit set aside to help facilitate that is super handy, puke bucket, bedpan, all that kind of stuff. And again, we have a list on there, and we also have a printout on how to turn our bedroom into a kind of makeshift infirmary. Now, these are some kind of supplemental kits for anyone that might, prone to flooding where an aerial rescue might be possible. Having an attic kit might be important. The attic kit that I have on here has got cold weather clothing, so gloves, hats, jacket, so that if you had to go into the attic for safety for whatever reason in the winter, there's no insulation, obviously, you have a little bit of protection from the elements. I have a rope in case you need to get out of the attic for whatever reason. And I have nails and hammers, and then a sheet says help on it so I can tack that up. Candles, flare. I've got a little device that you can screw into the socket to turn it into an AC outlet. So if you needed to charge a phone, you could do that. It's pretty handy to have, if there's rescuers needing, people are driving by or flying by, they can see a help sign, they can see a flare, they could see, that I need help. And in the meantime, before help comes, I have the ability to stay warm and dry and have a little bit of a light with the candle, and just some basic supplies. So in the basement, that again, that's another issue for flooding, where maybe you might need some additional stuff. So I've got rolls of extra plastic. I've got extra different types of fans, box fans, and a big floor fan or whatever to kind of dry surface areas. I've got a backup sump pump. So if my sump pump goes out, I can swap that out very quickly. I've got hoses to move water. And then what you don't see in there is also sections of PVC. So I can, if for whatever reason need to get in to do some plumbing, I can replace broke pipes and things like that very easily because I have all that PVC already there. So this is all basically just stuff that you want to keep in your basement kind of as backup, to making sure you're mitigating these problems. And there's some additional items like buckets and some sanitation based items in there as well. So yeah, having some stuff up in the attic and having some stuff in the basement to kind of facilitate home-based emergencies, I think is really helpful. So we do have some bulk stuff and some storage stuff. We have some organization to that. So we have different types of things that we've kind of put back, things like, if you're traveling and you're picking up things like soap and conditioner and lotion and stuff like that. We've got food that we've put back that we can keep in the attic, and other supplies, matches, work gloves, old clothing, anything that we think might be useful, again, to either use, to dip into, or to give away. So we have that all inventoried and organized in the attic with all this additional stuff. So yeah, toilet paper, other types of paper products, all the stuff that we want to kind of put back, kind of keep, so if I lost a job and was out of work for a year, we could dip into the food storage that we have. We can also dip into the hygiene products and the different stuff that we have set aside, so we don't have to go to the store to buy that stuff. So I think that a lot of preppers kind of go overboard and buy way too much, kind of, so I think there's kind of a happy medium with that. All right, so in an emergency situation, I think a lot of times in the back of your head, we're always worried about security. And really, I think in most emergency situations, people are not assholes. People actually come together and are actually kind of pretty good for the most part. But that being said, there are people who do take advantage of situations. Having the ability to defend your home, your property, may be something that you might want to consider. So having firearms available, different types of ways in which you can, what we call force multipliers. So different things that you can leverage force with, and some other weapons. So probably my best, defense for the home from just regular burglary and other things like that is having a dog. This one's not a guard dog by any means. It's an Australian Shepherd, but she does bark, and she's very much aware of who is friendly, who is not friendly, and so she is very much aware of that. She's not an attack dog. She's not trained, but having a dog present kind of makes people kind of second guess whether they want to come at a home. In a rural area, a gate is, I think, essential. Personally, a gate is going to keep people. It's not going to stop anyone, certainly, but it's going to slow you down. It's going to look a little weird if someone's parked in front of the gate, if, say, we're not home. That's going to look a little odd to anyone that's driving by. And also, it's going to not facilitate or be people, if they're breaking your house to steal your TV, they've got to break down the gate or park by the gate and then walk, an eighth of a mile or whatever it is to the house, with, or back to their car with that TV that they're trying to steal or whatever. So it can be cumbersome. It's a huge deterrent, like the dog as well. So people see the gate and they might be driving on. Fortification of doors, so that's longer screws, kick plates, locks, things like that. There's a deadbolt, deadbolts that you can use. There's a lot of different ways you can fortify solid core doors. If you don't have solid core doors, have at least one place with a solid door in your house to make a safe room. Security lights and security cameras are certainly really important, I think. Lighting being probably a little bit more important than cameras, but you know, cameras are also good if you do go to camera route, to get the hardwired cameras in, don't go Wi-Fi. But I think lights are motion detected lights, and lights are set on timers, and do both are certainly helpful. So having multiple lights around the house and garage and barn and that kind of thing. Then you could have some other deterrents. This might be a little bit more extreme. These, so this is a strip of 2x4s with nails that you can put across. So if somebody across their driveway, so if someone wanted to run through our fence that we have up, our gate that we have up, or fence, we can put this down, and so that it would stop somebody. They would at least have to get out of their car to move this if they even saw it. And then some caltrops as well. These are old. I mean, this is as old as the Romans to stop horses. But these could be put out in a driveway, again, to help control people's ability to get to your house. Then we get to the firearms. Probably kind of the gold standard, in my opinion, for most home defense is a shotgun, 12-gauge shotgun. You don't have to worry as much about over penetration. The right kind of shells, the right power has the greatest stopping capacity. I think that there is a sheer terror when people hear the sound of a racking shotgun. You know, there's a lot of controversy on that, but you know, shotgun is functional. You still have to aim it, but the shot spread is greater. I think putting a flashlight on there is pretty good idea, because most instances of home defense where you're going to need this is going to be at night. So I did mount a flashlight on there. Yeah, to me, I think, you know, the nice thing about a shotgun is it doesn't hold a lot of ammo, but for every round that you have in there, so is one person. So if you've got 3 rounds, that's going to help you defend against 3 people, essentially, is the way to think about it. Because that stopping power is quite substantial. You don't have to worry about multiple rounds. But a shotgun has its own limitations. You know, you can put a pistol by the bedside, for example. You can carry it with you on the property a lot easier. So having a pistol, I think, is for home defense is also a really great option, really great idea. 9mm, 45, 40 caliber, whatever you want to go with. For home defense, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Yeah, I think that yeah, having a pistol is great. If you want to up your ante a little bit, you know, having a something that's a little more high powered, like a 223, 556 AR platform is very, very functional, very effective. It's a good close quarter weapon, like a shotgun for indoors. It's good also for outdoors, for property defense over the course of, you know, a longer reach, if that's something that you need. But this is very mobile, very functional indoors. Again, I don't have to, it's not very long. I have a light mounted on there, red dot as well. So I have the ability to you know, use this for you know, different types of emergencies, and also with the 30-round magazine gives you a lot of ammo. So then with some force multipliers, the ability to carry more ammo, first aid and other weapons is kind of also important. So this is just a stand that I have that you can kind of keep, you know, there's a plate carrier behind the chest rig there. So you could, you know,
create a little bit advantage by having the ability to carry more ammo and also having the ability to have body armor. And then, you can go from primary weapons with a rifle, a secondary weapon with a pistol, and then a third weapon with a knife for close quarter. So you have a lot of capability by using these force multipliers. Another force multiplier I would consider to be also might be handy in some situations would be night vision. NVGs would be a particularly helpful defending your home at night from outside or inside the house. There's other weapons too, aside from the knives, tomahawks and bats and other kind of crazy weapons. So having something, I think having just something available, you don't have to have everything that certainly have on here, but having other types of things that could be used as weapons. Certainly wasp spray. If you didn't have mace or pepper spray of some kind could work. But keep in mind that the legalities of using those types of weapons as well. You could get in some serious legal issues with using wasp spray, for example. So with any firearms or any kind of things that you're going to have, we've stored food. I think we should also be storing ammunition. How much ammunition is going to depend on the individual. I've got 223, 5.56, 9mm, 28, 22 hunting rounds for higher powered rifles. 20 gauge, 12 gauge, all that kind of put back. And there's different kind of recommendations floating around the internet. And then you just be realistic about what you think you need to put back. We're going to do some specific videos down the road on some caches, but there's different ways that you can cache gear. So you can certainly cache gear at home. I would suggest caching gear at a neighbor that might have, so you can keep change of clothes, a travel bag, maybe food, things that you can kind of dip into, kind of as a neighbor that your neighbor might keep with you. You could keep backups of your hard drives with your neighbor or a family member. You could keep certain items at a rally point, and then you can also put back money or put back items that can be considered resupply items. That again, you can use as to resupply you for whatever situation you're responding to or others. So this is my resupply kit. This gives me the ability, it has 2 MREs, meals ready to eat. I've got some first aid supplies, not much, just a little bit for kind of, bleeding situations, for example. Some paracord, some spare batteries, spare ammo, water, flares, and glow sticks, candles. And so I have the ability to kind of resupply myself with food, water, ammo, being probably the most important, and some kind of auxiliary items like first aid and signaling. Training is really important. You really want to be able to train as much as you can, if you can, on site. Physical training, firearms training, things like that. I think is really an important aspect to being prepared. Like we talked about in our emergency preparedness presentation, you want to run through all these different scenarios that you're planning. And I think training outdoors, if you have the ability to create, go to a range or make your own range. I have my own personal range where I have barricades set up. I have tires and barrels as well. But these are my new, mobile barricades I can move around. A bench that I can rest firearms on, as well as clean, as well as shoot, I think is really handy, or put just a water and binoculars on and ammo. Then I have some steel targets. So I have 2 kind of mobile targets that I can move around, as well as some targets that I can shoot from the bench or from prone. So this is just another picture of the range that I have up. So, I think in the end, it's really comes down to you. If you're part of a kind of community defense team or a mutual assistance team, or however you want to, family group, having the ability to kind of be prepared for disasters really begins at the home. This is where you're going to fall back to. This is where you have the most amount of resources. This is where most people are going to weather out situations. I know it's fun and romantic to think about going out into the woods and living off the fat of the land, or if you live in a small apartment, it might be tempting to think that it's going to be safer for you out in the rural environment or in the wilderness. But in actuality, it's probably going to be just more safe, more resources in the city or in a suburb or in a location where you're at. So I think we just have to be more realistic about how we think about this stuff. And really at the end of this presentation is about just to get you thinking about things that you could do, that's more realistic than some of the crazy doomsday prepper type stuff that you see with bunkers and $5,000 worth of food put back, or kind of remote homesteads that are created to redoubts and things like that out west, or hunting cabins and things like that. That there's things you can do in your apartment, there's things you can do at your home, in a suburban home or a rural home, to be protected and safe. So thank you for participating in this presentation. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions, you can contact me. My email is on the website. You can visit us at www.blackswanoutdoors.com. And again, we really appreciate it. If you do like this video, like and subscribe, and we do have more videos that you can watch, and more on the way.